Okay, Shalom Chevra. So today I want to tell you an amazing story. Something that is so powerful. It's a bit of a standalone idea. It's really based on everything we've been learning about in Reb Nachman, that not to fall into the lies of this world. And it's also specifically about the Parsha, that Pharaoh thought that he could plan and destroy the Jews, but in the end, Hashem showed that there's nothing but Him. Ein oid milvadai. There's nothing but you, Hashem. Ein oid milvadai. And I have a story to share with you that Rav Tzvi Meyer told over. It's something that he's been telling over a lot recently, and it's a very powerful story that people need to hear and then to meditate and think about. And it's very nuanced. And I'll begin. About 40 years ago, there was a chashuva Talmud Chacham. Talmud Chacham means a great Torah scholar in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel. And he had major problems with his kidneys, and they started to fail. And you could imagine kidney failure, even nowadays, when a person goes into dialysis, is not simple and very painful, and therefore 40 years ago, all the more so, this was not a simple thing. And this very, very chashuv Talmud Chacham fell into a very difficult state of pain, and he needed to be on dialysis a number of times a week. Dialysis is essentially drawing out the blood of your kidneys and draining it. It doesn't work as well as a kidney, but it's at least getting you there. But because of the dialysis, you could barely drink anything in order that it should be able to draw out the blood. And we're talking about major pain, suffering. And this went on for 5 years. Now I want you to remember this person. This is the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael, a very important person, a great human being, and he was going through major kidney problems. And 5 years this is going on. And even with his dialysis, it was just, you could only be on dialysis X number of time. It's not a kidney. And after 5 years, and he realized that it wasn't stopping, and besides the fact that he had a very strange blood type, so it's very hard for them to find a donor that would be a match for him. It was a very unique blood type. And he decided that b'siyat d'shmaya, he was going to travel to New York. He was going to leave Eretz Yisrael after 5 years of looking and pain and being on the dialysis. He was going to travel to New York to see if he'd have more hatzlacha and find the kidney there. He arrives in New York and he spends 9 months looking, asking, making connections with people, trying to find this kidney that would save his life. And after 9 months, he decides, I have to leave because maybe Hashem does not want me and I should go back to Eretz Yisrael. Remember, when he left Eretz Yisrael, he didn't just go by himself. He was an established person. He left his wife. He left his family. He left 7 children who, of course, gave him the blessing to go to save your life. You need to find a kidney. And they blessed him to go. And he traveled. And after 9 months in New York, he felt, it's time to go back. It's time to go back. As he was getting ready to go back to Eretz Yisrael, he meets a certain person, a Yid, who, from the sound of it, you're going to think this was Eliyahu Novi, and this Yid says to him, you should know, I myself, 10 years ago, I was an orphan from my mother and father. And 10 years ago, my kidneys also started to fail. And I met a certain person And now he's telling them the story inside of the story. So it's a story inside of a story. He's telling this person that it was Yom Kippur. I was a young bacher. I was in shul on Yom Kippur and I was broken. I was so depressed. I'm an orphan from my mother and my father, and my kidneys are failing. My life is ending. And there was a chashav, a Talmud Chacham from America. So now we have the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael, whose kidneys are failing, that traveled over to America to find a new kidney, who's about to go back to Eretz Yisrael, who runs into this boy that 10 years ago, now he's already an average, but 10 years ago had, already his kidney was failing, and he was on Yom Kippur, and he meets the Talmud Chacham in America. And the Talmud Chacham says, why are you so depressed? How can I help you? He was so broken. He said, I'm an orphan from my parents, and my kidneys are failing. On Yom Kippur, this chashav Talmud Chacham from America in shul tells him, he says, I am committing to help you get a kidney, to find a kidney that's going to be good for you. Now, this Talmud Chacham in America doesn't know anything about kidneys or medicine or acquiring or getting involved in this type of stuff, but he was so moved by this person, this boy who was an orphan, that he didn't have any hope, and he committed, I will help you find a kidney. That was Yom Kippur. Comes Purim time, and this Talmud Chacham in America non-stop was looking and making calls and became an expert in kidneys, and helped him to find a kidney that was appropriate for him. And through tremendous miracles within that story, was able to get this orphan a kidney. And now 10 years later, this orphan meets this chashav Talmud Chacham Eretz Yisrael, right as he's about to travel back to Israel because he gave up hope, and he said, let me introduce you to the Talmud Chacham who met me 10 years ago in the shul on Yom Kippur and helped me find a kidney. Let me just make a shidduch between the two of you. That day, the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael meets the Talmud Chacham from America, and the Talmud Chacham from America is so moved by this person, he says, I'm going to help you find a kidney. The Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael calls his family, his wife and his 7 kids back in Eretz Yisrael, says that I met this person, it's unbelievable. He says he's totally going to help me, but it might take time. His wife just says, you do whatever you need. We're behind you. We want you to live. They spend another year and a quarter looking without any success. So now he's already 7 years. His kidneys are failing, excruciating pain. 7 years, 2 years away from his family. They decide that they should go to travel to the hospital, a famous hospital in San Francisco, that would do tests to help him get a kidney. Now, you should know in those times, the states used to be split up into different districts of hospitals, which means even though this Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael was number 1 on the kidney list in New York, San Francisco was a different district, which meant that he was in another district and he was not number 1 there. He was taking a chance by flying from San Francisco from New York to San Francisco, but he thought, nothing's happened here in the last 2 years. I'm going to go to San Francisco. Let me see if they're going to do testing there. They're going to be able to give me a kidney. I'm giving you the details of this because Reb Tzvi Meyer said it's very important to know the details. Reb Tzvi Meyer heard this story from the Talmud Chacham in America and from the children of the Talmud Chacham in Eretz Yisrael. And he made a big deal that this story is very important and a mitzvah to say over. As they were getting ready to fly from New York to San Francisco, the wife of the Talmud Chacham from America, who is behind her husband, who's been involved with helping people get kidneys, says, I want you to make sure when you land in San Francisco, you have to call the house right away, because maybe while you're on flight from New York to San Francisco, maybe a kidney arrived. Now, it's not like it is nowadays with a phone and they have on-flight service and Wi-Fi. Back in the day, there was no cell phones. To find even a landline 40 years ago was not a simple thing. They had certain landlines, you had to get cards, you had to wait in line. There wasn't many phones. It wasn't so easy to stay in touch. But she pressed him. He said, I'll call you when we get to the hotel the next morning when the office opens up. I'll make a call, a long distance call. She said, no, you listen carefully. This is the wife of the Talmud Chacham from America telling her husband, you call the second that you land in the airport, the second you can find a phone, you call. He pushes back, she says, you call. Fine. They fly, it was going to be at least a day's journey, flying, they get to San Francisco, he finds a phone, he calls back the house, the Rebbetzin picks up right away. He said, is there a kidney? She said, nothing yet. He says, fine, I'm going to call you when I settle in. It's going to take us X number of hours to get to the hotel. It's going to be in the middle of the night. The next morning, I'm going to call you when the office opens. She said, no. When you get to the hotel, you call me. When you get to the hotel, you call me, because maybe from the time that you went from the airport to the hotel, maybe a kidney would have come. He's number one in the district. Because back then it was two different districts. If you're number one there, doesn't mean that you get it in San Francisco. There's two different districts. At this point, the Talmud Chacham from America, and Reb Tzimai said he's only allowed to say this because he told him, you have to say what happened. He tells us, well, I'm not calling you. If we didn't find anything for 2 years, what's a couple hours going to make a difference? I'm not calling in the middle of the night. We're going to get into the hotel. I'll call you. We're going to wake up the next morning. We're going to daven shachris. I'm going to call you when we wake up the next morning with daven shachris. I'll call you. She said, you listen to me. You call me when you get to the malon. You come when you get to the hotel. You call me when you get there. Because maybe something's going to happen in that time. He pushes, I'm not calling. She's like, you're being foolish, you call. Call me when I don't want to be, but you call me when you get in. They get very, very late at night to the malon, to the hotel. He forgets. Very late at night. The next morning he gets up early. There's people knocking. It's the San Francisco police. The San Francisco police find this. Remember, there was the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael who needed a kidney, the Talmud Chacham from America who was involved with the boy 10 years before, helping him get a kidney, 10 years plus a year and a quarter, they flew to San Francisco together to now do testing. And now the San Francisco police are saying, are you so-and-so? They said, yeah. They said, call home. Call home. The Talmud Chacham from America calls his house. She says, as soon as we hung up the phone from the airport, they called me. They have a kidney for the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael. The doctors say it's perfect. It's exactly what he needs. It's unique because everything about the profile of the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael was a very unique blood type. He needed a specific kidney. It's exactly what he needs. But because it took you 3 hours to call, they gave it to somebody else. It's gone. At this moment, you could imagine what the Talmud Chacham from America was feeling. The Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael is dying, and now he's on the phone with his wife, and she said, you literally, I told you to call the second you got in. I told you. He starts shaking, like uncontrollably. The Talmud Chacham with the kidney failure from Eretz Yisrael sees this, and is like, what's going on? He's like, he's thinking, how could I tell him that because I was such a fool and I didn't listen to my wife? She screamed and she said, you have to call me. And I didn't listen. I fought back because I said, why should I call? It's already been 2 years. And he was trying to conceal it. But the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael saw that the Talmud Chacham from America was literally shaking. He could not control himself. And he said, what's going on? And he said, you should know they found a kidney every doctor says it's exactly what you need, but they gave it away. They gave it away. On the spot, The Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael starts dancing, starts screaming, Hodu Lashem ki tov, ki li'olam chastoi. And in the middle of the hotel, there's hundreds of people starts dancing, Hodu Lashem chastoi, Hodu Lashem. At this point, the Talmud Chacham, he's getting like revved up and mamish dancing and dancing and dancing. And the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael, from America, thinks he left his wife and family 7 years. He's in excruciating pain. He literally must have just lost his brain. Like he's gone mad. He's gone mad. I just told him that I had a kidney for you, and now you're gonna die because it literally I didn't call and I was asked to call, and now that was it. You were waiting for this, and I messed it up, and now he's dancing. He's gone crazy. He must be nuts at this point. And then the Talmud Chacham from Eretz Yisrael pulls the Talmud Chacham and he starts dancing with him. Dance with me. He says, "What are you dancing? What are you doing? You're dancing? I'm responsible for this." He says, "You don't understand. You think because your wife told you that you had to call, and you didn't, and you forgot, and all the doctors say this is the best kidney in this could not be a better kidney for me. That's what you think. But you know what Hashem says? It's not my kidney. It's not my kidney, because it didn't come to me. It must have been that this kidney would have been horrible for me. And it must have been that had I gotten this kidney, would have been the worst thing I could ever have. So Hashem made it that we should fly from New York, literally run away from this evil kidney, come to San Francisco, supposed to just call, literally miss it. The San Francisco police are literally searching all over San Francisco to find it. They can't find us for enough hours that the kidney's given to somebody else. Do you understand? Hashem saved my life. Now you really thought he was crazy. He is gone. He's mamish lost it. But he really heard something. He heard that something big was happening. He realized something was major happening. And he was mamish dancing. The Talmud Chacham from America, who's a very big person, he said a line that Meyer quoted. He says, you know, I don't know exactly what the heavenly angels and what the Seraphim, the big angels up there look like. But the light that was coming off this Jew's face, I think this is it. That not only was he not struggling and had to think about it, he knew there's nothing but you, Hashem. There's nothing but you. And it must be that if this is not what Hashem gave me, there's nothing but you. It's everything for the good, every detail. And the Vorka Rebbe said a vort about this from the pasuk Yoidu Shamayim Pilocha Af Emunascha Bekahal Kedoshim, that when the Shamayim, when do the heavens see how wondrous you are, when they see down here the way that people with true Emunah live? You know, the amount of things that you could learn from this is endless. Because we think this guy did this thing to me and this guy did this thing to me. That's called the world of Dimyon. Nobody's doing anything to you. If it happened to you, Hashem wanted it to happen. And once you could start living like this, it's a whole other reality. And Meyer said you have to really think about this. The sequel of the story was they traveled back together to New York. A week and a half later, they found a kidney. They found a kidney that the doctors said was as great, if not greater than the first one. And sadly, the person who got the first kidney passed away. because the kidney was infected. It was somebody who had an infection in the kidney, and had he taken that first one, he would have died. And he got his kidney, and this person is alive with a beautiful family. And Rav Tzimai heard this firsthand from the people in the Maisa itself. And he told everybody, you need to start living with Ein Oid Milvadoi. That we think that what the world says is the way it is, but Hashem knows what we need. This world, the Zohar says, is called Alma de Shikra, the world of lies. The world of Dimyonis, of fantasies. He did this, she said that. Oh, yeah. You did that thing to me, I'll never forgive you. If it happened, there's a reason. A person's going to have their own thing between Hashem. You can't hurt somebody else. Never hurt somebody. But if something happens to somebody, it's exactly what you need. Because it happened. And there's nothing but you, Hashem. The more that we live with this is what it means to leave Mitzrayim. This is called Yetzias Mitzrayim. As I live in a reality that there's nothing but you, Hashem. Ein Oid Milvadoi. And a Yid like that starts dancing. A Mamish Yid like that starts living a life of deep happiness. I was speaking to one of the students last night from America. We were talking about happiness. And it was so clear that he said that I'm just not happy. In the world out there, people are not happy. They're not deeply fulfilled. I said, how much is the world spending thinking about how Hashem runs the world? He says, nothing. Hashem runs the world? No. I run the world. And my bank account, and my boss, and my job, and my this. I said, no wonder everyone's stressed out. Because you really think that anything bad that happens, he did it, she did it, all this stuff. When a person starts remembering Ein Oid Milvadoi, Hashem, there's nothing but you, which is the mitzvah of Emunah, and Yichud Hashem, which is a constant mitzvah, and you think about this story, you think deeply how it applies in your life. What happened in the last week? He did that. Oh, she said that. Oh, I can't believe it. Oh my God. What happened in the last day? What happened in the last hour? What happened in the last 10 minutes? The guy behind me was kicking my chair. The guy does this. He dons too loud. This guy does this. He's smelly. She's this. He's that. Ein Oid Milvadoi. There's nothing but Hashem. And if it's happening, there's a reason. And we need to remember Hashem is with us every single second, giving us what we need. And when you start living with that, then you have a simcha amitis. Don't get fooled by the lies of this world. Hashem knows what's good for us. He'll always give that. And the more that we meditate on that, Bezrat Hashem, we'll have a tremendous simcha, a deep feeling of connection all the time with Hashem. And we should be zoicha to that simcha and the ultimate simcha and the geula shleim b'mher v'yameinu. Amen. Have a wonderful day, Chevra.